For our lesson number 1, we will be guided with the following learning objectives. First, identify the key parts of the human breathing system. Describe the function of each part of the breathing system and trace the pathway of air. So, to start with, let us first identify what are the key parts of the respiratory system. So, we have here the first one is we have the nasal cavity, we have the nostril, epiglottis, this is your epiglottis, you have the larynx, then you have your trachea, your lungs, your diaphragm, your pharynx, your bronchi, bronchioles, and the alveoli. So these are the parts of the human respiratory system. So now, our respiratory system is divided into two. We have the upper respiratory tract. This consists of nasal cavity, nostril, pharynx, and the larynx. And the lower respiratory tract, we also have trachea, lungs, diaphragm, bronchi, bronchioles, and alveoli. So after knowing the parts, let us familiarize ourselves with its functions and importance in the respiratory system. So we have here the nose. Your nose is considered as the gateway or the first organ of the respiratory system wherein the air, particularly the oxygen, enters. And we have also our nostrils. Our nostril. These are the external opening in the nose and serve as the passage of air into our body. Next is the nasal cavity. What is the function of the nasal cavity? It is in line with mucous membrane that helps keep the nose moist by producing mucus. So, the mucous membrane secretes a sticky fluid that moisten and warm the air that is breathed and trap dirt or dust or other particles from entering into our body. Next to it is we have the pharynx. So, pharynx has three regions. We have the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. So, the main function of our pharynx there is a narrow space located right after the nose and mouth, the passageway of air. The region of the pharynx that is involved in a cellular respiration is the nasopharynx, which extends from the base of the skull to the soft palate. And we have also the oropharynx, the oral part, and the laryngopharynx, the laryngeal part. Next to pharynx is we have the epiglottis. Epiglottis, it is a leaf-shaped flap cartilage located behind the tongue. Its main function is to seal off the windpipe during eating so that the food is not accidentally inhaled. So, ang function ng epiglottis dito is to guide the food to enter into our esophagus na hindi siya mapunta dun sa trachea, which is the passageway of air. Next, we have the larynx. The larynx is also known as your voice box. So, it connects the pharynx and the trachea. So, it contains the vocal cords that produce sounds once vibrated by the air. So, our trachea is composed of C-shaped ring cartilage and lined up with mucous membrane. The shape of the cartilaginous rings gives the trachea just the right balance of structure and its flexibility to do its job. So, trachea also contains specialized cells that produce mucus. So, mucus is important to maintain a healthy and respiratory tract. Again, our trachea is composed of cartilage and lined with mucous membrane. Its main function serves as the passageway of air going in and out of the lungs. So, based from the picture that we have here, it is a hollow tube. After that, the trachea splits into two small tubes called bronchi. So, the singular term for bronchi is bronchus. The first division of the trachea is the primary bronchi. Each of it inserts into the lungs. So, the primary bronchi branch out into secondary bronchi, which leads to the lobes of the lungs. So, we have the right primary bronchus, which branch 3 times. Since at the right lung, we have 3 lobes. Left primary bronchus will branch only twice, since we have, in our left lung, we only have 2 lobes. Then, each bronchus then divides and subdivides, forming the bronchial tree of the lungs. The smallest subdivision that are less than 1 millimeter in diameter and which lacks cartilage tissue are known as the bronchioles. So, bronchioles are the small bronchial tubes that deliver air into the alveoli. and there are about 3,000 bronchioles in each lung. At the end point of the bronchioles, we have our air sacs. Air sacs look like bunches of grapes. So the air sac is considered the functioning system of the lungs. So each air sac is composed of several microscopic packeting called alveoli, or the singular term for alveoli is alveolus. Capillaries surround the alveoli. The inhaled oxygen passes into the alveoli and then diffuses through the capillaries. Based from the picture, the alveoli is the site of gas exchange between the oxygen and carbon dioxide molecules to and from the bloodstream. The alveoli is only 1 cell thick, allowing the easy passage of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the alveoli and the blood vessels called capillaries. Next to alveoli is we have our lungs. Another important part of the respiratory system is our lungs. Lungs are cone-shaped organs of respiration in humans. So humans have 2 lungs that completely fill the space of the chest cavity and surrounded by the rib cage. Next to our lungs is we have the diaphragm. Our diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle separating the chest cavity or the thorax and the abdomen. The diaphragm is shaped like a parachute. The diaphragm is a sheet of smooth muscle located below the lungs, and it works with the lungs during the breathing process. Here, the animation of how air enters into our body with the different parts, involving the different parts of the respiratory system. Air enters into our nose, filters in our nasal cavity, then it goes down into our pharynx, to our larynx, and it passes through our trachea. So in our trachea, there will be a filtration done here. Then it will branch out into the left and right bronchi, and then into our bronchioles, and then into our alveoli. Thank you. That's all for our lesson today. Sana may natutunan kayo sa lesson natin ngayon. God bless!